Will, the autobiography of G. Gordon Liddy, also just known as Will G. Gordon Liddy, was released in 1982. It's directed by Robert Lieberman. It's written by Frank Abatemarco, with a cast including Robert Conrad, John Mahoney, Danny Lloyd, and various others. I wanted to watch this for John Mahoney. I had never heard of G. Gordon Liddy, so I appreciate having a bit of an education there. But the film itself is kind of dull. I was bored for about 2/3 of the film. Is that my fault for not having background information or not having enough background information? I would say no. On this condition, I'd say no. When it comes to biographical films, as is the case here, it should be able to hook the reader even if they have no knowledge of anything that's happening, no prior knowledge. And unfortunately, this didn't hook my attention for pretty much the entire film. G. Gordon Liddy is involved, or was involved, in the Watergate scandal. He spent time in prison, and that sounded fascinating, but the pacing is terrible. Maybe if I was an expert in the subject matter and could connect with various aspects, maybe it would be more interesting, but I've said it before, and I'll say it again. I feel like biographical films are not aimed at the experts. In fact, on the contrary, if you're an expert of something, then biographical films can often be very irritating because they often take creative liberties and change things, and it's insufferable. It's one of the reasons why I don't often watch biographical films of individuals I absolutely adore. I feel like biographical films are aimed at people with little to no knowledge of the subject, and they want to actually expand on that. So I feel like going in with a lot of knowledge, it might be great, but I don't think that's the target audience. In fact, I'm quite strong on that. Biographical films, in my opinion, should not be aimed at the experts. I'm not saying they intended to aim it at the experts, but the point there is that I don't think it would be a fair expectation to want the viewer to know everything. And maybe that would enhance the experience, but I don't think that would be reasonable. I'm not saying G. Gordon Liddy's story in real life is boring, but in the film it is boring. The focus on various aspects of his life was, in my opinion, just completely off. The pacing wasn't great. The prison aspect, yeah, I think they could have done so much more with that. It could have been so much grittier. We did have some courtroom moments that I did genuinely enjoy. But the focus throughout the film, in my opinion, was not interesting. And that meant that it was largely not an enjoyable film. The characters seem well written and believable. It's not that I wasn't buying into what I was watching, it's simply what I was watching was very boring for the most part. We have some good camera work, some good use of sound, some decent dialogue as well, but generally it's not a great film. Yes, it taught me about the existence of G. Gordon Liddy. Yes, I enjoyed some courtroom and prison scenes, but the rest of it was really, really mundane. Do I recommend it? Not really. And again, if you're an expert, you might get more out of it than I did. But as I said, at least in my experience, when you're particularly knowledgeable about a subject and then you watch a biographical film or a film based on that history, often it's more of a frustrating experience than anything else. So I guess I'd be curious to know what you think of it if you're familiar with the subject matter. But if you're just looking for an interesting film, then I don't really recommend it.